And it just skips from 4 to 1 because that's how it works. Hey, what's up, folks? And welcome back to another episode of the Koop'd podcast, the podcast that after 25 seasons is calling it quits. That's right. I don't know how we got to 25. Somehow, Glenn, we did it. But yeah, it's another episode. You know how it be. It's the Koop'd podcast, your one-stop shop for all things pop culture and everything in between. I, as always, am your lovely host, Koopa. And sitting down with me this week, folks, to talk about some some scattered subjects. It was outside of, today when some pretty juicy news dropped regarding Scarlett Johansson v. Disney. It's been a pretty light news week, but yeah, I decided to bring back a returning guest. We last spoke to him when Zack Snyder violated our lives with the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. Feels like forever ago, but it was only a few months ago. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the podcast, my friendo, Super Glentendo. Glenn, how are you?
What's up, bro? How are you, son?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. But dude, I asked you the question. Now answer it.
I'm all right. Dude, Scarlett Johansson v. Disney should actually just be the next MCU movie. Like, that's like the only thing that's bigger than Thanos is Disney as a corporation. Like,
yeah,
that would actually be insane. Like, if Disney just snaps and Star Wars is gone and like all the franchises are gone.
Yeah, that was that. Well, I figure we'll touch on that because that actually does springboard into something else I was going to talk about today. So it works. But we'll talk about it in a bit. But Glenn, it's been a couple of months since we last talked to each other. How have you been since have you recovered from the Snyder Cut? Are you all right?
Dude,
you Zack Snyder cool yet?
Dude, I don't even think about that movie, and I guess that's the good thing about it is that like it was forgettably bad. Right. And like sometimes a movie like, for example, Batman and Robin from the 90s, that movie's unforgettably bad, which is worse because it's like, all right, like this movie's going to haunt my soul for the next, century of my life. And whereas the Snyder Cut, it's just as forgettable as the official one that came to theaters. Actually, no. You know what? We don't want to dwell on this too much because we already did a whole podcast on it. But now that I've had time to sleep on it and it's been a couple months, the original theatrical release of Justice League is unforgettably bad. Like, it's actually just it's like so bad, dude. But the Snyder Cut is forgettably bad, which is actually not that bad. It's like, all right, you can watch this. You'll forget about it. And then it'll be like it never happened. So that's better, in my opinion. That's much better than unforgettably bad.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen some bad movies in my life. I've spoken to this with multiple friends, you included, but I enjoy a bad movie. If it's like, I'd like haha bad, but like I agree. Like I haven't thought once about the Snyder Cut until I was like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to Glenn since we talked about that movie. It's like it passed through my system like most lunches and dinners do. So for the most part,
yeah. Question, by the way,
yeah,
I gotta ask up top before we go any further. Gamer words. What's the official Koop'd Up podcast policy on gamer words? What language am I not allowed to say? I just want to know how free I am, bro.
Have I ever not told you this before?
I don't remember.
Curse on my podcast.
Well, here's the thing. So we do my show together regularly, right? And
yes, we do.
We're not gratuitous, but because I'm usually pretty gratuitous in my like daily life when I'm not like recording a show or doing anything official.
I can confirm that.
Yeah, like I'm pretty gratuitous. So when I was doing my show, I made it like it was a policy. It was like, all right, dude. If I don't like make this a law early on, it's going to get out of hand immediately. It's going to be just the worst podcast of all time. So I had to like hard right because I was already so on the hard left. You know what I mean? Now we're in the center. It's good. All right. Every now and then we'll drop a bomb on the podcast, but like that's fine because we started on such a like extreme correction that now it's like, all right, we're good. So anyway, that's why I wanted to ask, like right now, I'm like, I don't remember asking you before. I just assumed I can't do it because I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? But now that I'm a little bit more tame, I want to know how tight is the leash, Kyle?
Let me put it to you this way,
leash, bro.
So you know me in my line of work, I when I don't do this and do my day job, I'm an esports commentator in which I am required to be very buttoned up, like pretty much all the time. So I decided if I can't say fuck when I'm commentating, I'm gonna allow myself to say fuck on my podcast. So
Okay,
so
gotcha.
you got a pretty long leash. Just don't say anything you'd say in front of my mom. How about that?
Gotcha. I gotcha. All right.
So we've established that, but Glenn, how have you been? How are things going since the last time we spoke to you? You eating well? You drinking right?
I'm
What's
pretty
going on?
good, man. I mean, I've been things have been going pretty good the last couple of weeks, specifically just like, work stuff. Nothing that I need to get into details about here, but the podcast is fun to do. I do that every week. It's been fun going back to Smash events. I've been playing a lot of games, watching a lot of movies. I've been mainlining pop culture as you and this podcast are here to fucking do every week. I'm good. I don't know. Is there anything
You watch it?
specifically that you want to ask me? Like, or any
Well,
specific
I
pocket
think I'll ask.
about my life? You want to know about my love life? Like, you want to know like what I had for dinner? Like, how specific do you want to be here, Kyle?
What's your social? Just so I can get this down in writing. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm glad, just trying to catch up. As again, I'll say it at the top, as you always do on your show that we do, sporadically together. Glenn is also the host of the Glentendo podcast, a weekly Super Smash Brothers slash, gaming in general, podcast, which
Yes, sir.
I've said multiple times that I am the Ronnie Chang to your Jon Stewart on the Daily Show. So, I just kind of pop up every now and then.
Oh boy, that's
to make
hilarious.
it to make it into the credits. So,
You know what? Hold
yeah.
on. Before we go any further, I want to say one thing. I think at this point, you're on pretty regularly, and it's not like a special guest thing. Like you're kind of like the Colbert to if I'm gonna be, Jon Stewart Daily Show. You're more like the Colbert guy now. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
that's
that's
all I
like
wanted to hear.
that's like we're pretty much even now. You know what I mean? It's not like you're just some sideshow that appears every now and then.
You hear that, CBS? I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
First the Cooped Up podcast, then the Glentendo podcast, and then I'm coming for you, Steven.
Late night.
Yeah. Oh man, love Colbert. I'm here for that. But
Yeah, he's great.
yeah, big fan. But yeah, glad to hear you. Glad to have you back for what's been a bit of a fun week. And yeah, listen, when I invited you on, we're gonna talk about some fun stuff this week because, when I invited you on earlier in the week, the biggest story of the week was this an article by Variety that announced that a Pokemon live action series had been ordered by Netflix, which is fun, which led me down the rabbit hole of being, going back through the history of the live action remakes and seeing, if it's kind of overstayed its welcome, how we feel about it. Again, we're people, we frequent the media together that is constantly being, brought to the silver screen and so on and so forth. So I figured it'd be a fun little conversation. But like we just mentioned at the top, the hottest story of the last couple of days has been Scarlett Johansson suing Disney for breach of contract. So Variety, a website that I frequent very often for a lot of my news on on media and stuff, has been pretty busy these last couple days. Glenn, I don't know if you caught much
Yeah,
of the story
definitely.
yet.
I mean, it's funny because like um I don't really keep up with the MCU stuff that much anymore. Like for example, I haven't even seen Black Widow. I know a lot about superheroes, but like I'm just over the universe stuff and like the movies. But then this headline was just so insane that I was like, "What?" Like I actually was super interested in it, and I'm dead serious. They should just make this a movie, like Black Widow, the Avengers versus Disney, bro. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't really. So it's actually hard to follow because like this headline was like it was kind of insane. So I started looking at it just like for fun, and again, like the only thing that we really have seen is like statements from like each side's like legal team. So like of course they're gonna have things like this is completely ridiculous. Like both sides are saying it, and it's like kind of hard from a distance to tell who's who or whatever. But
Yeah.
what it seems like happened is that like uh a lot of times movie stars they have like different they kind of make different money depending on like different feats that the movie achieves. So for example, they'll be like, oh hey, if you want to be in this movie in your contract it'll say that like you'll make a bonus if the box office exceeds this amount and then you'll make another
Right.
bonus if the box office exceeds that amount. And so what I think happened based off of like the whatever I can like piece together is that Scarlett Johansson is making less money off of this movie because they chose to put it out in theaters and stream it at the same exact time. And usually they've been like staggering the stream to be a couple weeks out so that it doesn't hurt the opening box office. And so I think that that's what happened is like, you know, she's mad that her contract says like, hey, it's supposed to be delayed a couple of weeks or whatever so that I don't get, you know, destroyed. What is it? Incentives or what's
Yeah.
what's the word for like, you know, there's like such a common word that I can't be on blanking on where it's like, these are your not
Requirements?
royalties.
No. No,
It's
I know
like,
I know what you're saying.
yeah.
I know the word.
But yeah,
I'll
it's
put
like
it in the
basically
post.
like, you know, these are my stretch goals.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like and like you're ruining it because obviously if you stream a movie the same day it comes out in theaters, the amount of people who are going to go to theaters to see it is a lot less. So obviously there's also the global pandemic end of it, which Disney tried to throw back at her like,
Yeah,
hey,
that was kind of
this is
wild.
like, yeah,
Like I don't know how like so again for people that might not be in the know, again Scarlett Johansson has been tied to Marvel and Disney for 9 movies. She is one of the OG Avengers, and believe it or not, this and I knew that this was a thing, but it kind of blew my mind that Black Widow is only like the second like female led movie in the MCU, which like blows my fucking mind
what's the
because
first one? Oh, Captain
it was
Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it definitely like blew my mind. Even though like I knew that that was a thing for a while, I was like, it's just one of those things where if you say it out loud, it kind of like catches you by surprise a bit. But
right.
yeah, this was so it's very murky and awkward. And for what I understand, I believe there was an agreement between Disney and Scarlett Johansson back in like 2017 that Scarlett Johansson would receive like I don't know if it's like royalties or something or some sort of, like we said, there's a common word for it, but Scarlett Johansson would be paid more money on top of what she was paid for the movie, which by the way Disney also like said that in their statement what her salary was, which is like mega fucked up. Like that was super not cool. Like
Yeah.
from that whole statement was just littered with problems, and it was really really bad. But this agreement was made back in like 2017, where Scarlett Johansson would make X amount of money, tied to how well a movie does in the box office, and obviously with how studios have been releasing their films with these staggered releases. Disney's again, that opening box office weekend for Black Widow was great, and then as someone that keeps up with the movies, it completely tanked like the next 2 weekends, which was really really bad for it. And I
Yeah.
know that other studios have been doing this, and I'm very curious how Warner Brothers goes about this, because I know Warner Brothers has what Disney Plus does it, where they'll put their certain movies behind paywalls. Like you have to pay like $30 for premiere
Right.
access to like access the movie. I know that what Warner Brothers does is that their movie releases simultaneously, but then it goes away after like 2 weeks. So I don't know how.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how like that affects their box office numbers as well. So I'm curious how much of that is going to come to the forefront with this, now that Scarlett Johansson has kind of taken a step to be like, hey, like this isn't cool. But
Yeah. This whole
yeah,
thing is
it's
like,
weird.
this whole thing is just like the Wild West, bro, because it's like,
Yeah.
number one, you have that things were already like transitioning into streaming already. And then you have the pandemic, which basically just was nail in the coffin. Like before the pandemic, like for years, people have been talking about how like outside of the giant Marvel movies in the summer, like movie theaters are really struggling to stay afloat. And then you
Yes.
have the pandemic happening and it's like nail in the coffin. And then you have like, for example, this Scarlett Johansson situation, it's that in a lot of, you have like a lot of these old contract tropes or like these old models of how to get paid. So for example, um, in her contract, it's like a large portion of her salary is tied to the box office, and it's not tied to the streaming because it's a whole nother world that no one's really sure how to measure. Like, well,
Yeah.
if you make, for example, with a movie, right, in theaters, there's a certain amount of money that is generated from people buying tickets and going to the theater for that movie. So you can go, okay, this movie made $10 million. There's like, that's so much more clear and cut and dry to be like, oh, I make 2% of the box office. When it comes to streaming, no one's paying generally speaking, no one's like, they're paying for the service already. They're not paying for each individual movie. So it becomes this like gray area where you're like, all right, well, where do I take my percentage from? Like, how do you measure how much a single movie made just streaming? It's just so different. And then to bring up what you were talking about with Warner Brothers, like, I don't really know. They've been doing this thing where now Warner Brothers owns HBO. So the Warner Brothers streaming app is HBO Max. And they announced like maybe a year ago or less than a year ago that all of their movies going forward were going to be simultaneously on the streaming app and on in theaters. And unlike what you were saying, it's not paywalled. It's not like what Disney does where you pay an extra $20. It's literally just, I just saw the newest Warner Brothers movie on HBO Max like a week ago, right?
Yeah.
And so that's also super controversial because you have directors like Chris Nolan who did the Dark Knight trilogy, he did Tenet, he did Dunkirk, he did Inception. He's done a million great movies. He's leaving Warner Brothers over this. Like he made a statement saying, you know, a lot of like Warner Brothers has like a lot of these directors and a lot of these studios or not studios. Let me rephrase that. A lot of directors and actors and people in the movie business, they went to sleep at night thinking that they were working for the greatest movie studio in history, which is Warner Brothers, and they woke up the next morning finding out that they actually work for the worst streaming app, which is HBO Max. And so it's like HBO didn't consult any of their like top directors or anyone on their like in their long list of like legendary like talent that they were going to do this. They just like made the statement one day. And then now you have like Netflix's boss saying like, I will do anything to get Chris Nolan's next movie on Netflix, which includes
Right.
like maybe having a theatrical release first, which like they did for The Irishman. Like they paid for that movie, they put it out in theaters, but then they also had it streaming. It's so weird. It's like all this stuff is just weird. Like that no one's really figured it out yet, and it's causing so much problems for everybody. But at the same time, I feel like people really do want to go to theaters. Theaters are never really going to go away.
Mhm.
Like I can't imagine theaters streaming could become huge, but I still will never believe that Americans will stop going to movie theaters. Like that is just so that's like so ingrained in like the culture. Like how
Yeah.
do you not go to the movies? You know what I mean? Like that's literally just like where do you take a girl on a date? Like to the streaming app? You know what I mean? Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Like,
Also,
dude, I took her to Disney Plus, and then after that, I took her to Netflix, and then right after that, I was like, "Yo, I got HBO Max." Like, what are you gonna do? Did you take a girl
and then
on
I
a
forgot my
date?
password.
Yeah, and then I forgot my
Yeah.
password, bro. It's like, dude, you go to a movie theater, okay? You get dinner, you go to a movie theater. You don't just stay home, get Grubhub, and then surf through 7 streaming apps. So
Yeah.
who knows what's gonna happen? But this Scarlett Johansson thing, just to finish my thought on this, it's like just another like nail in the giant, you know, movie theater coffin, or like it's just so weird. Everything is so gray area.
Yeah, it's so strange, and it's funny when you know brought up how it's really hard to judge like the box office, you know, stats with these simultaneous releases, and that also goes for the TV shows because to my knowledge there isn't anything like a Nielsen rating, like how you know measure how many people are watching a television show at any given time,
Right.
with like streaming stuff. I remember I heard something about like you know around the time of the Loki finale that there is some sort of stat that's like, oh, at this time, like, you know, it reached like 2 million households or something. But like, even then, like, that's like you said, like, this is why we're in the middle of the streaming wars, not the streaming aftermath. You know, we're still
Right.
trying to figure this stuff out. You're seeing, especially now, like award shows are starting to like nominate, you know, give these, you know, Netflix and Hulu original films like their roses, and shows like The Mandalorian and WandaVision and shows, you know, strictly on streaming
Yeah.
are, you know, being nominated for these huge awards at you know all the various award shows throughout the year. So it definitely is sort of a strange time, and the Scarlett Johansson stuff is definitely gonna this is not gonna stop. We're gonna keep hearing about this sort of thing with movies for weeks, because I heard something on the way home that, you know, Emma Stone is thinking about doing the same thing, about opening a lawsuit against Disney for Cruella, for the same reasons. About, you know, I'm sure she also had a contract where, you know, it was there was incentives tied to you know, box office numbers, and then, you know, you released a movie simultaneously, and that hurts those numbers. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I agree with you. I don't think the movie theaters are going to go anywhere. And also my hot take, well, it's not really a hot take. At least if it's the first date, I don't like going to the movies. That's not a great first date spot for me personally.
Dude, that's a horrible first date. That's like when you're already together and you're going on a date.
Exactly.
First date, how are you going to talk at the movie, bro? Like, what? That's just not.
You can't. You'll just be an asshole. Like,
if a guy takes you to a movie on a first date, he's no good. He's just looking for one thing and one thing only. All right, ladies know what I'm talking about.
Overpriced popcorn.
Yeah, he's just trying to blow it on the tuition prices at the concession stand.
Tuition prices. What's the most amount of money you ever spent on snacks in movie theater off cuff? Do you think you know that?
I don't, because when I was like a kid, I remember being at the movie theater and like, here's the funny thing. You know when you're a kid and someone gives you $20 and you think that you're Scrooge McDuck, like you think that you just won the lottery, right? So yes. I remember going to the theater, and the theater was like the first reality check. It was like the first like time where like I felt like I was Bill Gates, and I walked into the movie theater and with the $20 and I'm like, I'm gonna buy popcorn and soda and like maybe 2 sodas, and they're both gonna be extra large, and yeah, you bet I want butter on that popcorn. And don't forget the jujubes, right? I was like so excited. And then the guy just looks at me and he's like, here's your 2 sodas and your small popcorn. That's like $18, bro. And I'm like, that's when I realized 2 things. Number 1, $20, not rich. Okay. And number 2, dude, you need a tuition to go to the movies. Like, this is insane, bro.
Yeah, it's wild. I definitely knew I made it comfortably as an adult to where I can go to the movies and, not feel like shit when I left, because I know how much money I spent and I'm just like struggling to like budget myself till my next paycheck.
Oh my God.
Especially there's like because I don't know what this was. It was like, we'll get back on topic in a second, but I think it was like in like 2019, like the end of 2019, but I went to the movies like 4 times in a span of like 3 weeks. Like there was just like everything that I wanted to see was just coming out at one time, because like The Rise of Skywalker came out in like November, and then Knives Out was still in theaters at the time and I wanted to see that, and then Frozen 2 was out and I wanted to see that, and there's like another movie in there that I went to go see. But it was just like I went to the movies like so often that I had to take out a small loan from my bank, and I still haven't been able to pay it back yet. It's
just a small fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, nonetheless, though, it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. I don't expect to see any variants of Scarlett Johansson popping up in any of these Marvel shows coming up soon.
I don't know if variant is the best word to be using at a time like this, Kyle, but I'm going to let it slide. Okay.
Honestly, Loki came out for Loki, man. Loki definitely like sparked the usage of the word variant much more frequently, and then then the news caught up, man. And it's like, yeah, it's how that happens. And speaking of Marvel shows, they announced that Hawkeye's coming out in November 24th. So yeah, if you're into that, have fun. And we're gonna move past that very quickly, but yeah. So we're gonna get into one of our 2 topics today that I brought you on for, Glenn, and what the people. I'm gonna say 2 words to the people of what they want to hear about: educational television. Because earlier this week, and this is something that kind of blew my mind, and it's a stupid topic, and we'll get to the meat of the podcast later. The children's television show Arthur is being canceled after 25 seasons. I believe it's scheduled to end in the winter of 2022, or I think that's when the last season will debut. Apparently, I read some article online that they stopped making episodes of Arthur like back in like 2018 or something. So whatever they've been making has been like what's left. So that's when I discovered that Arthur has been on the air for 25 years, and suddenly time felt like a lot smaller, and my back started to hurt a lot more.
Yeah. So,
Glenn, I'll ask you. You're a little bit older than me. Are you an Arthur guy? Is that something you watched when you were growing up?
Dude, when I saw, no. All right, the answer is no. And then when I looked at what you were like, you're having me on this episode, right? So I'm looking at like the topics we're going to talk about, and I'm like, why does Kyle want me to talk about Arthur? I don't know anything about Arthur, bro. Dude, the only thing I know about Arthur is like when I was a kid, like the book versions of like the show were popular. So like I know the characters, like obviously I know what they look like. and everything. But like the only thing that comes to mind now is the freaking dumbass meme of like
Yeah.
his fist. Like that's literally the only thing I know. Like I don't know anything about Arthur. I didn't know that it was a TV show, first of all. Okay.
You really?
I
Wow, that's
thought that maybe
surprising.
it was like a comic strip or something. I only saw it in book form. And then uh and then I know what they look like, and I know like I don't think I've ever even seen Arthur, bro. Like this is gonna be funny because we're gonna have this conversation from the perspective of you know a little bit about this, or at least a medium amount, and I know absolutely nothing. So I'm just gonna make fun of everything you say, bro. You're bringing me
I'm here
into
for it.
this to just make fun of Arthur.
I'm here for it. Listen, so that's very funny, and it's even funnier to me that you didn't even know that Arthur was a TV show, and yet you've definitely seen the memes, because I feel like the
Yeah.
memes is what's really like kept Arthur in the zeitgeist around people in like our general age group. Because so I'll expose myself. As a kid, I watched a lot of Arthur growing up. It's a show that frequented in my house, as a kid, and then as I had nephews come into my life, that would also be something that we'd throw on in the background, because it's painless, it's
Yeah.
harmless, like
It's safe.
it's an aardvark wearing a sweater. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Like, and so, and Arthur, definitely taught me some lessons. I remember in the real time, I learned, I watched the infamous episode with the fist, where the concept of I don't know if you like. I'll give you the context behind that episode, Glenn. Arthur gets mad at his baby sister and he punches her.
Oh, he actually does hit her. Let's go.
Yes, yeah,
All right, that's
yes,
a lot not safer than I thought, actually.
yeah. No, listen, Arthur goes there sometimes, man. It definitely it externalized a lot of my fears that were internal when I watched the show. Like, there's an
Yeah.
episode where one of the characters like throws up in the cafeteria in front of everybody, and then has to like face the consequences of being the kid that puked in school. And I was just like, oh man, like I feel that like deep in my soul. Like, never wanted that to be me. I like my social capital as a a 9-10 year old was already pretty low to begin with. Like, I wouldn't have survived, man.
What if
It
a
was
kid
rough.
was like, yeah, I learned how to throw my first punch because of Arthur. He taught me how to ball up a fist and hit my sister.
It's very possible, but again, the show definitely lived on in infamy because of the memes.
Yeah.
It actually had a spin-off show where one of the characters on the show like travels around the country to like it was one of those weird, like, again, it was like a live action like animated hybrid, like Rocky and Bullwinkle, but like
Yeah.
with like cartoon, with like cartoon characters. And like, it was one of those like educational like travel shows where like, oh yeah, like this family lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like, what's life like in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in like, I don't know, the mid 2000s or whatever. So, and it was fun. Arthur was also famous for having like guests hop on the show in like animal form. Like, I think there was an episode with Lance Armstrong, where Lance Armstrong was like a rat or something. And yeah, there's definitely some famous cameos of people in
that
Arthur.
guy's
Let me
the
look this up.
opposite of a rat. That guy got ratted on, bro.
Yeah, the stock, yeah, definitely not great. Matt Damon plays a version of himself in Arthur. The Backstreet Boys, Jane Lynch, Alex Trebek, like tons of people like show up as themselves.
That's actually one of the coolest things about some cartoons and kids shows is that they all have like a long, awesome list of like cameos from like super famous people. Like if you go on YouTube and look up like, Sesame Street cameos, Sesame Street has had some of the best cameos for like 50 years. It's like an insane
Yeah,
list of like the best stand-up comedians of all time. Like even people who you would never think would ever want to be on Sesame Street because like maybe they're super vulgar or like whatever. It's like you could find clips of like Richard Pryor on
yes,
Sesame Street and like Robin Williams. That one makes more sense
yeah,
because he did a lot of kid stuff.
or
But
James
like,
Gandolfini, like a weird
yeah,
one like that.
yeah, like De Niro is on like
Yeah.
Sesame Street. So like yeah, and then like if you look at voice acting stuff, you'll be really surprised like how many like really like A-list like actors have done voices for like the most random like kid shows.
Yeah, like again, I just clicked on like one article that has like 15 of like Arthur's most famous cameos, and this list goes from everywhere from Idina Menzel, the voice of Elsa in Frozen, to Congressman John Lewis. So
Oh wow, that's awesome.
yeah, it
Rest
definitely
in peace.
yeah, rest in power. Definitely a strange list. And again, did I watch this show like up till current day? No, I have better things to do than watch cable television. But from what and every now and then, like there'll be like one of those like very special episodes of the show that like pops up in my feed and like hits the news cycle. There's like there's an episode where one of Arthur's teachers comes out as gay, and like they like go to like his wedding without even realizing it. So one of those very important teaching moments for kids.
Right.
And again, was this one of like my go-tos as when I was like in that age where I would like watch these shows, or where like my mom would like put these shows on for me. I wouldn't. It wasn't necessarily my first or second choice, but the fact that something like this could like a show like this can go on for 25 years, and I didn't even realize it, and B, you didn't even realize it was a show. Like that's
Yeah.
quite the feat. That's quite the run.
I feel almost bad. Like, oh my god, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you spent 25 years of your life making this thing that I don't know about. That's sorry.
That's very funny. That I love that. But yeah, rest in power, Arthur. The memes will be withstanding forever. Like I think they're hilarious. Like the one of like it's just like out of context are all great. Like the one with like the someone's like grabbing pancakes and there's syrup all over their hands. Like that's from Arthur.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that meme. I know what you're talking
yeah.
about. That's so
Yeah,
bad. That one is
it's a
hilarious.
very popular one in one of our group chats for
Oh
sure.
my god.
Yeah, it's rough in these streets out here. But yeah, listen, in that era of in that era of educational television, I was definitely more of a Reading Rainbow guy than I was an Arthur guy. So
I don't even. You know what's funny, man? Like while we're on the subject, I think I remember my mom telling me at some point, she was like, "Yeah, I could never get you to watch educational television when you were a kid." Like, I don't know why. She was like, he hated Barney, he hated Sesame Street, he hated all these like educational shows, which maybe makes sense why I had no idea what Arthur was. Yeah, I don't remember. Like, I'm trying to think right now, like, are there any educational shows that I grew up with? But I really don't think there were any that like I could think of. Like, I just wasn't one of those guys, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, you're also like a little bit older than I am. So like, I feel like by the time that like I was like, by the time I was like 5 or 6, like you were already like out the age where you're probably playing with like action figures and stuff. So like, it was probably one of those things where this might have just like skipped you, because I feel like, like yes, shows like Sesame Street and Barney have been on for like forever, but like I feel like the boom for educational television was in like the early like late 90s, like early 2000s, with like shows like this. And then like I come back as an adult, and like I found out that like, oh yeah, like, oh, LeVar Burton was in Star Trek. I knew him as that guy that read a book with Kermit the Frog one time when I was like 9. Like that was cool. And now he's hosting Jeopardy this week, by the way, which is great.
It's
Fun
not that
fact.
easy being green.
But you know what? I found out that Kermit and Big Bird were both Muppets. Like for some reason, it like blew my mind as a kid. I'm not quite sure why.
The
Because
Jim
this is like, why isn't he on
children.
Sesame Street? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, there's yeah, because there's the Muppets and then there's Sesame Street, and it's like you don't cross the streams. I'm sure they've done some crossover. They have to have done some like Jim Henson extended universe thing.
Oh, is that next? Is that
That's
the next big
thing,
one?
the Jim Henson universe, that the JHU.
I don't know if I'm ready for that can of worms to be opened, but yeah, let's salute to Arthur. Have fun. I'll see you in the reruns.
Wait, before we leave this topic, all right?
Yes.
You're at a movie theater, right? The credits
Yes.
roll. There's an after credit scene.
Oh no.
Big Bird shows up. I'm building a team. Okay. Who do you got in your Jim Henson Avengers, bro? Who do you got?
Oh
Who's your
my
guys?
g-
Let's go. I'm gonna go with.
man.
All right, Big Bird. We kind of just have to have Big Bird, right?
Yeah.
Kermit is definitely there. There's no way you're not having
Yes.
Kermit.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely like the first two picks off the board.
Yeah, so we're gonna have like the Iron Man Captain America dynamic between Big Bird and Kermit. All right, and then we're gonna have Elmo. My guy Elmo has to be there. There's
I
no
agree.
way. And then
Yeah.
as the Hulk, we're gonna have Oscar the Grouch.
Ooh, that's a good choice. That's a really good choice, man.
And then I think we could round the team out with Cookie Monster and the Count. The Count is gonna be like the Doctor Strange, the Doctor Strange of the crew, bro.
How many sequels will this spawn? One, two.
Sequel, two sequel.
That's so funny. I would see. It's so like, it's so hard to pick because like there's so many good ones. Like I'm a big fan of Fozzie Bear. I love Fozzie Bear. Big fan of Gonzo. You know, especially from like those like I watched a lot of those like Muppet movies growing up where like I forget what it was. There was like one where like Gonzo and Rizzo the Rat were like very prominent and it like sticks in my mind for some reason. But that's a fun one. But yeah, like
I like Snuffleupagus. He's just like tired all the time.
Hello, bird.
Hi, bird. He's like Ross from Friends or something. Like he's just sad all the time. He's like, oh, I relate to this character. He's like me.
Oh my god,
I'm sad. He's the character whose like parents divorced when he was 6, and he's never been the same.
Yeah, it's changed him. Oh man, Beaker's a good one too. I love
Beaker. Like, yeah, and then well, I was just thinking of Bert and Ernie. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, the Muppets Extended Universe can go on for a minute. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that Jim Henson like dark like adult comedy movie that they made like with the Muppets?
What? No.
Yeah, there's. Oh my god. There was what was it called? I'm googling. Oh yeah, it was called The Happy Time Murders. It was a crime comedy film in 2018 starring Melissa McCarthy, and the movie features like a shit ton of Muppets because it's like I think like partly produced by the Jim Henson Company. Yeah, the movie tanked. It was not great.
Oh, I do remember that. That was more modern. Yeah, like it was like maybe like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, it came out. The movie came out in like 2018, so like it came out.
Oh, okay, so it is. Okay,
yeah, it's very modern. Yeah, it was. Oh my god, it was bad. It was really bad, and it makes me sad because like,
yikes.
I like, and again, and we could you kind of use this as another talking point of things that adapting things to be something that they're not necessarily meant to be. Like, I don't think the Muppets belong in a like. In an adult crime comedy film with Melissa McCarthy, like that should have stopped with Crank Yankers on Comedy Central, and like
you never know, man, because like on paper I agree with you, like of course this didn't work out, right? But then it's like there are other movies that on paper sound equally as bad, and then when you see the movie, you're like, wow, that actually was pretty good. Like I don't know how they made that work. Like that movie Ted with Mark Wahlberg and the teddy bear. Right. Like maybe some of that stuff can work sometimes and you're just like, oh, okay. It just depends. But yeah, this is definitely I'll agree with you. This sounds bad.
And you know what else shouldn't work most of the time, but does work most of the time? Live action adaptations, folks. And this is why I'm the transition god, because Glenn tossed me a dime and I slammed it home.
Nice.
As we are going to talk about the topic that we can both, provide decent input on. Is that again also posted by Variety earlier this week? A Pokemon live action series is in early development at Netflix. So yeah, this Variety dropped a story earlier in the week that there isn't a whole lot known about the project. We know about a couple of people that are attached to it. One of them being Joe Henderson, who is a writer and executive producer on the show Lucifer. Named after the DC Comics character, which is on Netflix currently. Never seen that show before. I've heard really good things about it. But yeah, so I had a feeling something like this was going to be coming at some point. Detective Pikachu came out in 2019, was a smash hit. It grossed over like $400 something million in the box office in 2019. Got a pretty decent like Rotten Tomato score. So yeah, this is a thing that's it's happening at the very least, and in a time where we're getting some other Netflix live action adaptations. The Cowboy Bebop live action series is supposed to be coming out later this year. I think.
I actually did not hear about that. That's insane.
Yeah. There's a live action Cowboy Bebop coming to Netflix. Netflix has done this before with the Death Note live action adaptation, and this is a thing that's been happening in media for a long time, not just specific to video games, but obviously, any sort of like fictional media will be adapted to like a live action sort of setting. But I think what we're talking more so about is like things that have been traditionally animated, then being brought to life as like a live action sort of deal. So because obviously like print media like comic books, novels, stuff, all the have been some of the best movies of all time. So Glenn, I'll ask you this: how do you feel about where do you stand on a Pokemon live action Netflix series? Do you think something like this could work?
I mean, yes, it can. You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's a way. There has to be some like way for this to work, but there's a lot of ways for it not to work. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
most of these things have not really worked out that well. But then again, I mean, Netflix did a really good job with the Castlevania series, so that's one thing. I personally haven't really seen it yet, but everyone like the most hardcore Castlevania fans I know really like it, and I also know some people who don't care about that video game series at all, and they also like it. So that's one good thing. The other thing is that Detective Pikachu it wasn't bad and it wasn't amazing, but it was like solid. Like it was like decent.
Yeah.
Me personally, I didn't like the way the Pokemon looked in it too much. Like it was a little too weird to see like a furry Snorlax and like a really furry Jigglypuff. Like that stuff never kind of completely settled well with me, but it can be done. The thing is that I think this is like a bigger conversation about like Nintendo right now is going through a lot with making their IP and their franchises like more than just video games. And there's this bigger trend. So like lately, I don't know if you've been following it, but like next year we're supposed to get the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is a 3D animated movie by the team that made like the Minions and stuff.
Yes,
so
DreamWorks, I believe. Or
yeah,
Universal Pictures.
Yeah, but the specific team I think is Illumination Studios. But if you follow that whole thing, it's like it took forever for them to like cozy up to the idea because obviously they, like you said, these live action things, they can go really bad and usually they do. And the Super Mario Brothers movie is like one of the worst movies of all time. And it's actually one of the worst adaptations of all time. Like it's like if you were going to have it's actually pretty innovative on how bad it is. Like it really broke new ground on how like this went really wrong. And so apparently like the director of the new animated Mario movie that's coming out next year, he was talking about how like, dude, after that, like he had to talk to Nintendo for years before they trusted his studio to make this Mario thing. And the bad taste that first Mario Brothers movie left is just so insane that like, he's like, I had to have one-on-one conversations with Miyamoto himself. If you're listening to this podcast, I assume you know who Miyamoto is, but I'm going to explain. He's the creator of Super Mario Brothers and Zelda, and he's one of like he's the best game designer of all time. Dude's a genius. But like, that's his baby. And he's like, dude, I had to have like a million conversations with him before they would allow, like, they trusted me to do this movie. Obviously now they're making it and everything. And the reason I brought that all up is just because that director of the Mario movie, they actually just recently said that he's like now on the board of Nintendo. So he's overseeing their entire new like agenda on taking their franchises and making them into movies or TV shows. Like now that's like a thing. So clearly, like it was like in the last month or so or 2 months that they announced that he's like officially on the board of Nintendo. So clearly their plans are going to be insane. And like the Pokemon stuff for Netflix, not only does it make sense, but like there have been rumors about I remember for years there was rumors about there being a Zelda series, a live action Zelda that was coming to Netflix as well. So like then you have like the Star Fox anime, like they made that one thing like when Star Fox Zero came out years ago, where it was like an episode 1 of like a potential anime, and it was super cool and it was like animated really well. And then they had like the Pikmin shorts in 3D that are like they were Pixar quality Pikmin shorts. So can this work? Yes. Am I excited about it? Yes. But it could also go really wrong. And if it goes wrong, I'm going to be really tight because it tells me that like all these other projects that I just mentioned, all these other things Nintendo's doing, like there's rumors of a Donkey Kong like movie or series coming, all of those things. If this Pokemon thing is horrible, I'm just gonna assume that all of them are gonna be bad, man. Like, I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
able to handle this. Like, I'm not gonna be able. Like, it feels like the ball is already rolling to a degree where, like, unlike the Mario movie where that came out, it was so bad that we didn't get any Nintendo movies again, right? This is now to a point where even if this Pokemon thing or the Mario movie next year is bad, it feels like they're already setting the groundwork for like, we're doing this anyway, and you're going to get a million, versions of our characters and movies and series and stuff. So I don't know. I'm like cautiously optimistic about it. Like, it can be really cool though. Pokemon, the anime was really cool. So who knows?
Yeah, I echo a lot of those same sentiments. Like it's there the balance can be so easily thrown off for something like this because like you mentioned, like the original Super Mario Brothers film adaptation is trash. It's probably one of my favorite bad movies of all time because of the source material and like I remember John Leguizamo who played Luigi in that movie like went on a radio interview and was just
Yeah.
like he was just like it's one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my entire life. Like Bob Hoskins said it was just like he's never had so much regret in taking a role before, even though he was fantastic. Again, rest in power, King. But yeah, listen, it's one of those things where like you're not super surprised to see it happen. Like you said, Nintendo's definitely been a little bit more liberal with their IPs the last couple of years. So if this does take off, like it's like with mobile games, they definitely got their feet wet a little bit late to the game, and now they're things like Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and Fire Emblem Heroes are so huge. In the mobile game market, and if this does take off with the shows, maybe we could get that, Legend of Zelda TV series that was rumored to be we would have been getting years ago. And as for the Detective Pikachu of it all, I enjoyed that movie for what it was. Like I was like, listen, I'm not going to go into here to expect like a traditional Pokemon movie because it's not. Ryan Reynolds is literally voicing Pikachu, and I have to remind myself of that constantly.
Yeah.
Like, like that was a big. I think that was a big summer for Josh Brolin. No, was that? No, I think that might have been. I don't remember. I think I'm trying to remember if Deadpool 2 also came out in 2019. I don't remember.
Oh, right.
Either way,
Wait,
big summer for
yeah.
Josh Brolin. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm curious to see how it's going to go because, again, I use this as an excuse to kind of like jump through the rabbit hole of live action adaptations for media. And again, it's happened all over the place. You're seeing it now with Disney. They're taking some of their classics from like, the Renaissance era and they're, rebooting them into live action to some pretty mixed success. We've seen it with video games in the past. Obviously, series is like Resident Evil and Silent Hill have translated pretty well to live action, but then you get things like Super Mario Brothers and Mortal Kombat that don't necessarily work.
Yeah.
But
know what the thing is? The thing is though that for me, like, sorry to cut you off, but like the thing is that these movies have to be better than just good. Like,
yes,
the thing about these Nintendo games and like Pokemon and like Zelda and Mario and stuff, it's that those games and franchises are really timeless. And like, obviously, like, dude, Pikachu and the original Pokemon, they're still super popular today. And that series is 30 years old. And then Mario, 35 years old, still like the first game, like Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong, the original games, are still insanely popular and timeless. Like, they need to hit that mark with these movies. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but me personally, like, it kind of goes to the thing we talked about earlier in the show about the Marvel movies where they're not bad. Like, I actually like a bunch of Marvel movies. I'm not trying to like hate on the MCU or anything.
Yeah.
But it is this thing where I'm like, I want these things to be better than just passable or better than just, hey, the Mario Brothers movie was so bad that like by comparison, this is pretty good. Like, I don't want that. Like the Sonic movie, I'm sure it wasn't like the worst movie ever, but that's not good enough. And even Detective Pikachu, I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay, but like that's not good enough for me either. And like whenever it comes to this stuff, like I want it to be as good as the property that like it's coming from. And when you're taking Mario and Zelda, like, and Pokemon, these are like the best game franchises ever. Like, they are, no one would argue that Mario and Zelda are not the best thing that ever happened to video games. So when you're actually going to make a series, I just want it to be something that I really like, even if I'm not a fan of the series. Like, it's just a good quality thing, like The Dark Knight is a great movie, even if you don't care about Batman or the Joker or any of the nerd stuff. You're just like, I want to see a good movie. That movie is phenomenal, right? That's the level that they need to hit. Like, if you don't like video games, you'll play Mario and be like, wow, like I don't know, I didn't know I liked video games until I played that game. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be like that, where you like it because it's just good. It's not just fan service. And like, that's personally, like, if it doesn't hit that mark, I'm going to be a little disappointed, and maybe I'm asking for too much, but that's kind of where my headspace is at on all these kind of things.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying there. And again, I feel like the reason that they're making this at all is because of the recent success of things like Detective Pikachu.
For sure. Yeah.
And again, the Glenn, to pay homage to the show that we do, every week, the Sonic the Hedgehog of it all. That movie made a lot of money at the box office.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that movie actually did insanely well. So it's like,
yeah,
and again, no one I know, like even you, the most like biased propagandist, like Sonic supporter of all time,
Yes, sir.
you would not tell me that that's a great movie. You would say like, oh, it was fun. Like it's definitely not bad, but like the amount of money it made was definitely not correlated to how good the movie was. It was just that it was good enough to make a lot of money because people want to see these characters, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yes. It was that a cinematic masterpiece? No, it was not Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Was it a fun watch? Yeah, it was fun. Like,
dude, it doesn't even have to be Citizen Kane. Like, I just want it to be
yeah.
Like, for me, this Mario Brothers movie next year, it doesn't need to be the best movie I've ever seen. It just needs to be like a Pixar quality movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Pixar hits it out of the park. Even if maybe, all right, maybe you don't like Toy Story 3 as much as you like Toy Story 1 or whatever. You know what I mean? Those movies are just consistently so good. That's kind of the level that they need to hit, in my opinion, for me to be like, this was worth my time, as opposed to just Mario's in a movie, so I'm automatically giving you my money. You know, whether the movie deserves it or not, it's just because of the color Mario. I'm gonna go watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that, on those grounds. I'm with you. Listen, like I'm very easy to impress when it comes to like movies and stuff. I know that it was funny for a while. I thought that like taking film classes in college was going to ruin me, because like the point of taking those classes is to really break things down, and like they really want you to critique and like find the flaws in certain films. You just can't say that everything's great. So like I definitely found myself like struggling to like enjoy bad movies, because I like I use the term bad like pretty interchangeably with like stupid. Like if it's like a dumb, like if the concept's dumb, like Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle is a dumb movie, but I love it. It's a fun, because it's a fun watch. Like Clerks is a dumb movie, but that's one of my favorite movies because it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And as long as the show is fun, and like if it's cast well, because that's another thing that people are going to be really keen on. I know that with the Cowboy Bebop live action series, they were very big on casting like Asian actors, for to play the role of traditionally Asian characters. So it's gonna definitely be an interesting series to way to see how to go about it. It'll be fun to see what kind of formula they go for. They're just gonna do Pokemon in live action. Is it going to be incredibly episodic of like, okay, here's your character of the week, here's your here's a gym, like I don't know how they're going to go about it. I'm very curious to see what information comes from this.
I wonder about that too, because if you'll notice, like I'm sure that if Netflix is doing this and it's Pokemon, it'll be an extremely high budget show. But if you notice, when you think about episodic shows like on Netflix or even on HBO, they almost never do concepts or shows that are like super high requiring of CG, because like when it's episodic and when it's like it's a whole different universe than making a movie, like the CG ends up being worse in shows than it would be if it was a live action movie. And so if it's a live action Pokemon movie or TV series, and then like they have like 3D Pokemon, I just wonder like how are they going to pull that off in a way that isn't like either like really really cheap looking, or maybe it's really cartoony and they figure out a way to make that work. Like I'm at the very least I'll say like of course I'm so interested in seeing what this is going to look like. Like all of these Nintendo properties, I need to see what they do with these. Like that Mario movie coming out next year, man, like not only do I hope it's amazing, but like I just don't even. This is a new territory for Nintendo. So like for
Yeah.
me, I'm just like, dude, I can't wait to see what this looks like. So yeah, Pokemon. Like I'm cautiously optimistic, but at right now, I'm actually very excited. I didn't think about it until we're talking about it now. Actually, I'm definitely very excited to see like the first glimpse, like when they finally show us what it looks like. That part of it, I'm really excited about.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely with you on that. And listen, like we said, if this does well, and it's Netflix. Like Netflix isn't definitely put some budget behind a lot of their original shows. If you've watched any of them, so I'm definitely not worried about that aspect of it because it is Pokemon, and I think they're definitely going to put like their best foot forward with that. And like we said, if this goes well, as someone again, I've said this on your podcast before. I am. I say I'm a fringe Zelda fan, but I'm also a fringester like Metroid fan. And there's been like every couple of months, like internet will catch wildfire with like a celebrity that looks eerily similar to like a fictional property, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, like why?" There's like, "Oh, Tom Holland would be great as Nathan Drake in an Uncharted movie," and
Oh
guess what?
yeah,
They're making an
doing that.
Uncharted movie. So like, the internet caught wildfire like years ago. Where like, oh yeah, like Brie Larson would be great as the role of Samus in a Metroid movie, and Brie Larson, like very open with with her nerd fandom, was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do it. And I was just like, oh, that would be sick. So like, I feel like if this does well, there's definitely an avenue to where this is successful. Am I expecting this to be the Death Note live action film? No, that was garbage. Am I expecting this to be, like we said, is this going to be like an animated masterpiece? Probably not. Is it going to live up to the hype of the original series? I don't think so either. Which, by the way, also
maybe.
Which, by the way, the entirety of the original Pokemon anime is on Netflix. By the way, it makes great background noise. Yeah.
So I hope that they do. One of the things I just thought about is like, just hearing you talk about like the actors and stuff. Like for example, the Nathan Drake thing, and actually HBO is making The Last of Us serialized TV series. So yeah, this is like the next like 10 years of our lives. The way that the last 20 have been dominated by superhero movies, I think video game stuff is going to be like maybe not as big because it's not as story heavy, but like we're going to see a lot more video game movie stuff. But the thing I was going to say was that like I just hope that they do what's right for the property and not like, so for example, the Mario movie next year, it's actually animated. It's not live action, which like I don't know who thought a live action Mario movie would have been a good idea. But like they should pick what's right for the project. So like Metroid, for example, that would be insanely cool as a live action movie. We've already seen movies that do something similar. Metroid is based off of Alien. So it's literally in the DNA of it, And then something like Zelda, I think Zelda would, I hope I'm wrong, but I think a live action Zelda would not be as good as an animated Zelda, like a Ghibli style Zelda. I think it's so funny because if you actually are a super deep nerd on all of these franchises the way I am, you'll know the DNA of each of them. And for example, Zelda has been copying Ghibli forever. Like the Koroks are literally copied off of the creatures that are in Princess Mononoke in the forest. Like they're literally almost identical. And like there's a lot of musical things that they've copied, and then like Breath of the Wild is very much like Princess Mononoke. There's like so much overlap between Ghibli and Zelda that is the right direction for Zelda. And then Mario is, he's based off of Mickey Mouse and stuff. So him being animated makes sense. And then Metroid is obviously based off of, Alien and like the 80s sci-fi movies. Like do that with her, and I think it actually goes full circle because Star Fox is based off of like the Jim Henson Muppet stuff, and that's why they had the Star Fox puppets made by the Jim Henson studio. Actually, if you go to the Nintendo World Store right now in New York City, you'll see the Star Fox puppets they actually had them made at the Jim Henson studio for that E3 conference. So like, these things, like if you care about these franchises, like I hope they just make it the right way. You know what I mean? So I have faith in the Mario thing because of like, again, hearing that like the director was like, dude, Miyamoto like had to speak to me directly for months before this thing got greenlit. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that like no one wants to do this and you need to convince me to do this. The idea needs to be great, and that like the security is like 8 clearances. It's not just like, here's our property, do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I definitely don't want like because it's funny you would just mention that because in my last episode I did a review of Space Jam: A New Legacy with one of my friends, and we talked about how like a lot of that movie feels like it's like someone brought up something to a producer and the producer did not say no. So like I feel there was no security clearance on that film at all, which is why it feels like a mess at the end of the day. And with Pokemon, it's very easy for that to happen. So I agree. As long as there's like the right people like attached behind this project. And again, from what I understand about the show Lucifer, I've heard it's good. It's on Netflix if you want to watch it. I actually did not know that was like based off of a DC property for the longest time. So I'm very, maybe I'll go watch a couple episodes of that just out of like morbid curiosity. But yeah, listen, I'm very excited for this. And listen, if you're, also, like I mentioned before, this is not like the first partnership between Pokemon and Netflix because not only is the entire original like Indigo League of Pokemon available on Netflix, but I believe the newest season of the Pokemon anime airs exclusively on Netflix now, which is
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really really cool, and it's also it's really fun. The Pokemon anime as a last like talking point here has really come a long way in the last like 6 or 7 years. Like it's like as an anime man, you know, I'll get on my soapbox momentarily for a second, but for anime standards, it's gotten very very good. It's not just Monster of the Week, Saturday morning cartoon shenanigans. It's got heart. It's got soul.
Dude, the Pokemon, people don't give Pokemon anime enough credit for like, anime was already bubbling up here in the West, like in like the 80s and stuff, like in the 90s, but it was still so niche. And when Pokemon came out and the anime came out, that was like the last bit of heavy lifting of popularizing anime in the United States. That was done by the Pokemon anime. Like people forget that is like the last, like, a bunch of things had like, you know, helped unscrew the jar and like, you know, helped it open up. But Pokemon was that last twist where it was like pop, and then, you know, you got pickles everywhere.
Yeah. I love Pokemon, man. I'm very excited. I want this to succeed. It's like watching one of my kids like, you know, do well. Like I want this to have legs and be good, and we can get multiple seasons of Pokemon, you know, adapted to Netflix. And again, as more information comes out about this, I'm sure we'll talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, listen, Glenn, we've reached the end of our time here today. Thank you for joining me on this awkward journey through both educational television and Pokemon and everything in between. So how are you feeling? Did you feel whiplash yet?
Dude, this went by so fast.
Yeah, I know.
This was fun though.
I didn't realize how like fast an hour goes by until I'm on my lunch break at work, and then I just immediately get thrown back into like the sauce.
Yeah.
Like,
one last question before we go. All right?
Please.
We fast forward to a year from now, right? You're watching the Pokemon live action TV series on Netflix. You get to the season finale. It's over, right? Credits roll. There's an after credit scene.
Oh no.
You see Ash Ketchum come out. And he's like, I'm starting a team. And then you see he's literally talking to Star Fox. He's talking to Fox McCloud. And then it just cuts to black. And then it's just like Smash Brothers coming in 2 years or whatever. And it's just, they're going to cross over all these properties. And you're going to have John Leguizamo come back as Luigi. And you're going to have like all these horrible decisions being made. Are you hyped? Yes or no?
I would have to go watch that movie, man. I'd have to see it. I'd have to. Like,
boy.
There was something that came out a while ago. It was it was like a fake movie trailer for the Avengers. If it was like the initial like fake cast list was the Avengers. So like Tom Cruise is like Captain America, and
God.
Elijah Wood is playing Spider-Man or something. Like it's like some like it's absolute anarchy. Like I would watch something like that. And listen, you know that's where this is gonna go if any of this stuff ends up like becoming successful. Like Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu, and you know, like just bring back everybody. If I am still alive by the time they make a Super Smash Brothers movie, it'll be too soon. So Glenn, thank you again for joining me today. Where can the people find you if they want more Glentendo in their life?
You can follow me on Twitter at Super Glentendo. I just talk about Smash and Nintendo stuff, video games. I don't really talk about pop culture as much on there. So, but yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter. And if you want to listen to an awesome big Galaxy Brain Nintendo podcast, the Glentendo podcast is on every single podcast platform, comes out every week. Check it out or don't. Honestly, I don't even care, bro. You want to just be a jerk and not check out another podcast, bro? There's too many podcasts. I get it. All your friends have a podcast. It's annoying. I get it. But trust me, if you're a Nintendo fan, mine is the best. I'm goated out here. Anyway, that's where you can find me. And that's it.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. There's only 2 podcasts in existence. My podcast and Glenn's. That's it.
Yeah, if you talk about another man's podcast other than ours, it's on site.
Don't talk about your podcast on the first date. That's my dating advice for the week. And that's all you guys are going to get from me. But yeah, thank you again for your time, Glenn. I appreciate
You're very welcome,
you.
Sir.
And if listen, by the time this comes out, if you guys want to hear me and Glenn commentate Super Smash Brothers, we're going to be doing so this weekend in Brooklyn together. So you guys can look forward to that. I'll put the stream links out on somewhere. I'll scroll it gently across the screen as the credits roll if you guys want to watch that. But because I edit these now because I can do that. I have power. Anyway, you guys, if you want to hear more of me, follow me on Twitter at KoopaNJ, KoopaNJ across platforms if you're into that sort of thing. Follow the show at Koop'd on Twitter. Email us questions at koop'dpod@gmail.com. I really got to get better at advertising that stuff. And what I also got to get better at advertising is that we are also on all of the streaming platforms. We're on not only on YouTube in video form, we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. If you can manifest a podcast site, we are on it. And especially on Anchor, if you guys listen to me on Anchor, I get a kickback money-wise. So if you guys are trying to support me directly, please check me out. Leave a like, a review, any sort of comment. Really, really helps. And hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, get vaccinated. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, folks.
Peace, babes.